All right. So yesterday we created a database and a table of some songs and albums and artists, labels, all kinds of different things. And hopefully you guys were able to run that script. So y'all let me know if you were not able to run the script or if anybody needs help getting it ran, and we can make sure you have it. And then anybody that was having trouble yesterday, I think there was only one person left that was having trouble, and sorry, I don't remember who it was. I don't know if they're here or not. But if you have had any trouble getting your environment set up, let me know and we can work on that as well. All right, so I'm actually going to send over another script here. And so that we can put a few more rows of data into our tables or table. And so we get that into the chat. Yep, we are recording. Why can I not type here? There it goes. All right. So grab that script out of the chat and then put it in Workbench. If you had closed Workbench and restarted it, you might have to reselect the music catalog database in order to run this script against it. And here in a second, I will share my screen. I'm just getting rid of some of these other databases I made yesterday. This DB, drop that. Okay. Let's go back over here and go to share. This way. Maybe that'll help me to remember how to do this. Window. Oh, entire screen. There we go. All right. So hopefully you guys can see my SQL Workbench screen. Yeah. Okay. I guess if you can't, let me know. Go ahead and run that. And then after you run it, let's see, don't save that. I end up getting a whole bunch of stuff open all the time. I can't think when that happens. I got to close it down. All right. So once you've ran that, remember we've got these CRUD statements. Anybody have an idea of which one of these CRUD statements we would use, insert, select, update, or delete, to look at the data that's in that table? All right, we're going to use a select statement, right? And if we select all from that, then we should see 12 rows in there. So I want you guys to do that. Make sure that you got the 12 rows in there. And then we're going to do we'll look at the coursework real briefly. Like I said, I mean, you guys can read, so you don't need me reading that to you, but I do want to call out some things that I think are important. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the coursework stuff. If you do have trouble running that, let me know before or when we switch back out of this coursework stuff and we'll get you going. All right. Does this talk about MySQL? There is a thing. Secure MySQL installation. Yeah, it says just do the research yourself, I guess. So MySQL has used to be called a plugin. Now it's called something else. I don't know. but it is called, what's it called? Validate password. What's it called? MySQL plugin for securing the DB on installation. Password validation, MySQL secure installation. Okay. Yeah, it's this MySQL secure installation script, and what it actually replaces this validate password um, plugin that they used to have. And this might show up on your certification exam. What it is a script that helps you implement security recommendations. If you were to open up MySQL over here on your CLI, and I think I can just run that. Hopefully I won't break anything if I do. Let's see. I have already run it when I installed it, but we might run it again to show you guys what it looks like. So how to run, what's it called? MySQL secure installation. Install MySQL, and then you just run that. Okay. All right, I'll try that. So this is something that you would run after you install the MySQL server. Okay, and what it does is it just helps to enforce some good practices or best practices from a security standpoint. Okay, so it's called MySQL secure installation. And the first thing it's going to do is say, hey, do you have a root password? If so, enter it. And then do you want to change it? I'm going to put no, because this is one that I had actually set. And then it says, do you want to remove the anonymous users? So yeah, we'll do that. And disallow root login remotely, meaning if someone else is on another computer, can they log into this one? I'm going to say no. And then remove the test database. I'm going to say yes. Reload the tables. Yep. And that's all it does, right? Now, one of the things that it does do, and it mentions it here somewhere, I know it does, and we may, let's see, let's check in here. Well, yeah, it talks about it, but it doesn't actually, somewhere it actually mentions that it does some other things, and maybe that's in a different module. I can't remember, but we'll come across it at some point. Anyway, it's something that you should keep in mind and just kind of put aside in your memory for, hey, this might show up on the certification exam. There is a thing that I can run, and it helps me to secure the install. Okay. If you have any questions about that, let me know. For now, just, like I said, just hit the I believe button on it and remember it. Let's go on and talk about the different types of data types that we have. We did talk a little bit about this yesterday. There's going to be some that we use all the time, and there's going to be some that you almost never will use. Okay. And basically, I think there's like 4 or 5 main types that we're going to, use most of the time. Okay. And if you haven't read through this, go ahead, on your own time and read through all this. Like I said, I'm just going to hit the high points. I'm not going to read it to you. You guys are smart enough to do that. But as far as numbers, right, there's actually just a couple of main ones that we care about. An integer, that's like for storing a whole number, right? That's, somebody's age, they're, 25, or the years, 2025. Somebody's weight, 180, right? Those are all whole numbers, right? There's no decimals or anything after it. It's not like, 180.5 or something like that. So anything that's a whole number, you're going to use the INT or the integer data type. Okay. that'll store a number up to something like 2.4 billion. Okay. So if you get bigger than 2.4 billion, there's actually a big int data type, which can store way bigger numbers. But an integer is what you're going to use most of the time if you're having a whole number. Okay. Um, let's actually go and skip to the decimal one next. All right. So this is like for precise decimal values. And you might think, well, aren't all decimal values precise? And then I would ask you, what about the number pi, right? You guys have heard of the number pi, right? 3.141589, blah, 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 all the way out, repeating forever, right? There is no actual precise way that we can write the number pi as a decimal, okay? So you wouldn't use decimal for the number pi. If you had a number like money, like this is $155.27, that's a precise number, right? And so you will use the decimal data type for storing things like if you know, to the actual decimal point what it is, right? For storing the number pi, you would use a float. You're almost never going to use a double, but a float would be a number that, it's just one of those weird things that you don't have an actual precise value for, okay? And so if you find yourself using float or double, then check yourself, right? Do I really want to be using this? Is this use case really what it should be, right? So for numbers, 99.99, which is the precise decimal value, percent of the time, you're going to use integers and decimals, okay? All right. Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward, right? Okay. String types, all right. So if you look back at, JavaScript, this would be anything, where you had put a value and you put it in quotes, right? So like if this was say JavaScript, you did const, name equal Fred, right? That's a string, right? Okay, well, you have strings in MySQL as well. Okay, now you're either going to use a char data type or a varchar, and char fits into that situation where you got to have a good reason to use it, right? Just like you'd have to have a good reason to use a float or a double, you got to have a good reason to use a char, right? 99% of the time, you're going to use a varchar, okay? That's a variable length character string. The part that's missing from char that is in varchar is the variable length thing, right? And the reason that you don't want to do that is because a char will use empty spaces to fill in the designated limit. So if I come over here and say this was, JavaScript or whatever, if you had a char 10 data type for a column, then and you told it I want to store the value Fred in there, well, that would probably put Fred in here and then put 6 spaces after it. Okay. Well, that's not what you want, right? You don't really want that. When we go to search for it, you're going to have to search for Fred plus 6 spaces, right? There's all kinds of reasons why you don't want this, right? And so about the only time you're going to use a char field is, I actually have a good example of when you might use it, state abbreviations, right? So say you had a table, right? And then you had the ID, right? Because we always want an ID, int, auto increment, primary key, right? And then you're going to have the name. That's a varchar, right? So it's actually the word, like, Texas or Arizona, right? But then you have the abbreviation, right? Well, we know that those are all, if we can spell abbreviation, ATLN, right? Those are all 2 digits, right? Or 2 letters. So you could do char 2 for that, right? That would be a legitimate use for a char field, right? Anybody have any questions about that distinction? Okay. So most of the time, you're going to use varchar, but if it's a fixed length string, then you're going to use the char field. Password hashes are also a lot of times fixed length. right? You run some long password through an encryption algorithm, or really a hashing algorithm. And a lot of times those end up being all some specific length, right? 60 characters, 80 characters, or whatever. You could use the char field for that too, right? Don't know that I would, but you could. Okay. On a varchar and a char both, you have to say how many spaces, or not spaces, but how many characters can I put in here, right? So for this char 2, right, you could put in things like Texas, you know, Alaska, Tennessee, New York, whatever, right? You can't put all. You could if you put, A, then it would be putting A in a space, right? Because it has to be too long. This would be the char 2 field that we're talking about here, right? A varchar field, right? If we're talking about the names of states, well, if you think about it, we don't have any states that are longer than 100, right? So we can easily say, okay, well, we'll make the maximum length of this varchar 100 characters. Why do you do that? It goes um, back into the deep history of hard drives. Okay, like believe it or not, my first computers did not even have hard drives, right? And the first computer that I had that I bought that did have a hard drive was only 125 megabytes, right? That's like a Word document now, right? And so back in the day, it was real important that you minimize the space that you were using all the time. Okay. And so if you have a limit of 100, then, ideally you're going to force your data to fit into that 100 space, and you're going to minimize. And also it will allocate, if you put 1,000 here, it'll allocate enough storage to store that one way or the other, whether even you put, one letter or 1,000 letters in there, it's going to allocate that space. So it's good practice to just do the minimum. I mean, I'm not advocating that you sit here and name every state, count the letters in every state. Okay, well, if the longest one is 34, well, then let's make this 34. I don't know what the longest state name is, right? You don't got to go through all that. Just be reasonable, right? The smallest value here that, with a reasonable amount of effort, you can be sure that it's going to hold the strings that you put in there. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, so we talked about numbers, we talked about strings. Let's talk about dates. Okay, there's a date data type, pretty straightforward, right? And you just store it in, I mean, pretty close to what we always wrote things in when I was in, which is year first, then the month, and then the day, right? A lot of civilians don't think this is the right way to make a date, but I've always thought it was. They like day, month, year, where I've always liked year, month, day. Time stores it hours, minutes, seconds. You can get actually, a little bit more precise than that if you want to. And then a date, time, and a timestamp, they both store date and time information. A date time field will be date and time together, like 2025, 04, 15, 19, 21, 03, right, for 7:23 p.m. or 7:21 p.m. A timestamp actually uh, generally stores it in what is known as a Unix timestamp. And what a Unix timestamp is basically the number of seconds. You don't have to memorize this. This is just bonus work or bonus content since January 1st, 1970. Okay. And that's how a lot of computers track time, right? It's like how many seconds has it been since the start of the Unix epoch? Okay. Um, and so it's just the number of seconds since that time. So it'll be a big number like this, right? So just be aware of that. Let's see. All right, Boolean, right? That's true, false. The coursework here says you can use a tiny int for that with a size of 1. That's true. So if you see this on a certification exam, then yes, you can use tiny int. I don't know why they didn't mention it, but there's also just a bool data type, right? There's a legit data type for booleans. But yeah, you can use a tiny int. There's other ones, other data types. Blob is for like if you want to store a file, an image, um, like your profile picture or something like that. You can actually do that. I would not do that. Databases suck at that, and file systems excel at that. So use the file system for that, right? All right, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to go over about the types here. And so anybody have any question on the data types? Pretty simple, right? We got 4 or 5 main ones. If you find yourself using float, double, or char, right, then just double check, make sure you're doing the right thing, okay? The date ones end up throwing people off for some reason. Not sure why. I think they just think it's more complicated than it is. All right, so has everybody been able to run the script I sent over? That insert script that puts in the extra 6 rows, right? Anybody not able to do it? I see Ian, you got your hand up. Is that good or bad?
Just a question. Is there any reason that you should not be using just decimal over the the smaller data types? So for example, like a 4 instead of a instead of like a 4-1 with the smaller data types, not just use decimal instead?
Well, one of the things, and I kind of glossed over this, I mentioned it yesterday. I should have spent a little more time talking about it today. But say you had something in this table, this fake table that we're making here, and it was something like the average income, right?
Mhm.
And you wanted to store it. All right, you got a couple options. Number one, it's money, right? Well, we think of money as dollars, but really what money is cents, right? And so say the average income was $100, right? Well, then you could actually just store that as 10,000 cents if you wanted to, and then it would be an integer, right?
Okay.
Right. So you could do that. So, but you would then want to name this in cents, right? So that
Mhm.
the guy that's coming behind you and trying to program against this isn't getting everything off by a factor of 100, right? So you got the average income. You could do that. And there are actually some payment gateways like Square and Stripe and some of these others that actually do expect you to send it in integers, like in cents. And so this is not an uncommon or an unreasonable thing to do. Okay.
Okay.
However, say you had the year of statehood, right?
Mhm.
And would you want to store that as a decimal? Is kind of the question that you were asking, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Is there any
okay.
reason why I shouldn't just store that as a decimal 4?
Yeah. So you could do a 4 and 0 like that, right?
Mhm.
Um, I believe, well, number one, uh, if you're going to do the data types, you might as well, do them fully, right? Could you do this? Yes. Are there any significant disadvantages to doing this? No. Right? Might it take up a little extra space? Probably. Yeah. But you know what? It's just going to confuse whoever, right? That's coming after you. Like, okay, why is this a decimal? I don't know. And now they're, using up brain cycles trying to figure that out when just the expected thing was to make it an integer, right? So I don't think that there's any technical reason that you wouldn't do this. Um, but I just wouldn't do it just from a,
Okay. Industry standard reasons then. All right.
yeah.
Sounds good.
But let's go ahead and talk about that for let's make this one back to an integer here because that's legit. Let's put this one back in dollars over here. Okay, and then let's talk about the decimal a little bit. We talked about this a little bit last night, but let me go through it again. All right, so I'm going to say, um, let's see, what's the most amount of money that we know people make, like average income? well, it'd be an average, so it's going to
figures?
be way lower. Yeah, so 6 figures, right? So you would do something like 8-2 for 6 figures. And the reason for that would be take someone who makes $100,000, right? That's 6 figures, and they make 25 cents on top of that. So if you take all that together, it's 8 with 2 after the decimal place. Okay. That 2 is a hard limit, right? So you can't say, okay, well, I have 8 characters here, 8 digits. I can go like that. And as long as I stay under 8 long, I'm good. You can't do that. You got to stay under, at or under the 2, which is the part after the decimal places. And then the 8, like I said, is the length of the whole thing. So to get the length of the part in front of the decimal, you'd have to do 8 minus 2, which is 6, right? Okay. Any questions on decimals? Okay. Most of this stuff, when you start using it, is when it really kind of starts to embed itself in your brain. All right. So, having gone over the data types, I mean, we actually went over most of them yesterday, right? Because we had the IDs in integer, song names, varchar, song length in seconds, right? We could have made that a decimal and put like 3.5 minutes or something like that. The release year, we went through all these and used up, kind of the main data types that we talked about. And then album release price, album release price being the decimal that we have, right? All right, so now we have all this information about these songs and labels, right? And here's we're going to do some data querying of it, right? Querying of this information. Okay. And so go ahead and get yourself a fresh window over here. All right. And then let's just go ahead and you guys follow along with me. Go ahead and select all from tracks. Okay. Make sure you got your music catalog selected over here. Right. Remember that if you don't, you can double click on it or you can type use music catalog. Right. Do that. Okay. And you see here that basically I've added a song to every one of these albums. Okay, so the songs that or the albums that you guys gave me, I went ahead and added to it, right? So let's say that we wanted to see the songs and put the artists' names together, right? So I want to see the Mike Jones songs together, the Stick Figure songs together, right? So forth. Well, one way that we can do that is we can order by, right, the artist name. Okay, so go ahead and put that in there and run that and see what you get. And if you're not able to make this work at this point, let me know and we'll get it figured out.
Hey, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if I probably installed this incorrectly, but mine isn't showing like the blue words like yours is.
Is it not? Does it work though? Like if you run it, does it work?
I mean, oh yeah, it does.
Okay. And are you on Windows or were you one of the ones on a Mac?
I'm on a Mac.
Okay, so Mac.
Like it shows like you select. It shows that in like a gray, and then the tracks like the right. The other words just in white, like white text.
Right. Okay. Um, let's see here. Keyword highlighting. Maybe a dark or light theme situation. Or dark mode. Like, do you have dark mode or something turned on your?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It may be that. I actually have vision problems. and so I have to have high contrast. So I use light mode for everything. You can experiment with that, but as long as it's working for right now, I would say
Okay.
let's just roll.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Yep. All right. So we've ordered it by the artist name, and so if you look over here, we got the two Beast in Black. All right, the two CCR, Kanye West, Mike Jones, Shea Zamora, and Stick Figure. Right. Okay. So, whoa. So does anybody have any questions about what this order by clause does? Right. There's several clauses that you can add. We talked about the where clause yesterday, and we'll do that a little bit more here in a minute. But I wanted to introduce you to the order by clause as well. Everybody cool with that? It just basically says, it's like when you're in an Excel spreadsheet and you sort it, right? And then you can actually sort it by multiple columns here, right? So you can do by artist name and then by release year, okay, if you want to, right? So do that. And then now it's by the artist name first, and then by the release year second. Okay, now most of ours are all the same, so it doesn't really make any difference to that. But this one here, the Shea Zamora one, it did, right? Because we've got these two. So Shea Zamora, and then 2019, and then 2020, right? So you can order by. Now, a lot of folks get sidetracked or side swiped, and they think it might be sort by, but it's not, okay? You got to remember, it's order by, okay? All right, so let's combine a little bit of this here and go ahead and get caught up with what I've typed here. Make sure you've got it as well. And then we'll go ahead and where, right? Let's do, let's see, the release year is greater than or equal to 2007, okay? Right, and that filters it, right? So the where filters it, right? Everybody understand that? Okay. Now there are different. Did I close that? Hang on. Maybe not. Yeah, here we go. There are different operators that you can use with the where clause. Okay, just like in JavaScript, you know, you can use greater than, less than, and all that. You've got a lot of the same operators here for MySQL, right? You got the equal sign is equal, and you got greater than, less than, greater than equal to, less than or equal to, not equal, which is, there's two different ways to write not equal. You can use greater than or less than, or bang equal. I don't know if you guys know that when you see the exclamation point in programming, you're supposed to say bang. So that's bang equal. You can do between. So you could do like release year between 2007 and 2017, right? That's how you do the between. You run that, okay? And then you can do, we'll talk about the like in a minute, and then you can do the in, okay? Well, in is actually kind of an interesting one, and it becomes more interesting later, but you could say where it's in this list of things that I have here. So I want to see where it's in 2007, 2017, right? So where the release year is one of these two things, right? So you could run that, and then it's just the 2007 and 2017 ones, right? So you use in with a comma separated list of values, okay? All right, let's talk about the best one of all. We'll leave that there. And whoops, come over here and get us a new line. I'm going to hide that output down there. Yeah, there we go. All right. So let's talk about the like clause. Now, if you go and look at what the coursework has to say about it, it says search for a pattern. Okay. Well, let's talk about that for a minute, right? that means if you want to search for, say, the word beast, right, in this artist name column, right, then you could do so, right? And here's how you do it. You do artist name is like, okay, actually you don't need that part. Now, if you just do this, it's not going to get it, okay? Right, we don't have anything here. That's because you have to use what's called a wildcard character, okay? Now, the wildcard character in MySQL is the percent sign, okay? So you could say where, and percent, when you read that, you should just think any set of characters. Okay, so if I was looking for the word beast, I would say I want any set of characters, and then the pattern, B-E-A-S-T, and then any set of characters. Okay, that's how I would think about that. All right, and so if I do that, then I do get beast there, right? Okay, and if I wanted to say, well, give me anything that starts with beast. Okay, well, you'd have to take the anything off the front, right? Because it would be beast then anything, not anything then beast then anything, just beast then anything. So this will still give us our beast, beast in black artist, right? Okay. Now say we wanted it to, so this would be an example of starts with beast, right? This here is contains beast, right? Because we got any set of characters, the word beast, any set of characters. Here we've got beast is the first thing, any set of characters, okay? And then if we wanted to do ends in beast, then we'd have to do anything and then beast, right? With nothing else after it, right? And so this actually won't match these because beast isn't the last word, right? So if we run this, right, we don't have it, right? So basically, you just have to think of it like your pattern would be anything, right? And then what you're searching for, and then anything, okay? And you can actually put another deal like that if you wanted to and make your pattern even more complicated, right? By doing that. So you would search for anything, then the word search, then anything, then the word for, then anything, then Katie, then anything, right? So if you can get that idea that this percent symbol being the wildcard character can be anything, literally anything, number, date, space, then then you've got that concept down. And this can be real powerful, right? If you wanted to, excuse me, like find, folks that have the same name as you, right? There we go. Right. Can you use it with numbers? No. You can only use it with strings. Okay. Now, you could convert a number to a string if you wanted to, and then use it on there. And it might actually do that automatically. Let's see. Let's select all from tracks where the release year is like, yeah, in fact, I think by doing this, so we can't do this, right? This 200%, right? You would think, okay, well, that might match 2006, right? That's not going to work, right? We can already tell from the X next to it that that's not going to work. Okay, but let's run it and see. Yeah, didn't like it. Okay, so what you would do if we put that in single quotes, what happens? Well, it actually did match it. And the reason that it matches it is because it does this conversion for you So since you say I'm comparing it to a string, then it's going to convert this to a string to do the compare for you. So you actually can do it with numbers. It's just doing a string comparison for you behind the scenes. Okay. Here's an actual thing that may be on the certification exam. Let's say I select all from tracks where the release year is 2006. Okay. Or where it's the string 2006. Okay. It's going to give us the same results. I'm going to run them both. I get two result sets, one here and one here, right? Same results. Okay. The coursework will tell you that one of these is faster than the other one, right? It'll tell you that this one here with the integer comparison will be faster than this one here. Okay. The reason why is because it has to convert this to a string, right? It's behind the scenes doing some kind of, convert as varchar, 50 or whatever. And that convert function takes time. It takes processor power, right? So keep in mind that a comparison with an integer will always be faster than a comparison with a string, okay? Just a little bit of bonus there in case you get asked on the certification exam. All right, so we've done where clauses. We've done order by clauses. There's another one that I want to do to kind of prepare us for something a little bit later. And it's going to be a whole lot like the order by. And just so that we're clear here, when you have your select, these all have to always be in the same order, right? So you're going to have tracks. Where is always going to have to come before order by. Okay, just FYI, you can't order by ID. You can't say, let's take this and put it here. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Right, that won't work. Right. In my mind, it should, because these are distinct individual pieces of the query, but it won't. You got to have the right order. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's do, one more. All right. So select all and go ahead and write this as well from tracks. Group by, okay. Artist name. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to pull just the artist name in our select as well. So we're going to select artist name from tracks, group by artist name, okay. And if you run that, it's going to give you just each individual artist name, okay. And the reason that it did that, excuse me, is because it created groups, right, of each artist and then told you what that artist was, right? So it created a group for Mike Jones. Here it is. Created a group for Bass in Black. There it is. Created a group for Kanye West. There it is, right? So this group by basically takes the values and compresses them all into groups and then just gives you one for each group, right? Don't worry about it if you don't catch that concept right away. We'll be talking about this more later. All right. So while I recover from my cough, I'm going to give you guys some assignments here. All right. So let's get a new window. Okay, your first assignment. And I'm going to help you out a little bit by giving you some clues, right? So select all the rows from the tracks table where, let's see, the artist is Kanye West. Okay. Give that a try on your own. I'm going to cough a lung out. Go sip. Hopefully my voice will be a little bit better in a minute. And we'll check on that in just a couple minutes, okay? So give that a shot on your own. Feel free to go back and look at what we've done before if you need to, right? We haven't done this exact thing, but we've done stuff close to it, okay? And I'll go ahead and start typing mine out slowly. So select all, right? From tracks. There we go. Oh, Christian, you might check that yours. Like I had this comment mark wrong, and then it changed the way my code looked, right? Because now it's a comment and it's not SQL, so you might check that. Make sure you're not doing it in a comment like I was just doing. And okay, unknown column artist. All right, so it's artist name. So I should have said where artist name is Kanye West to help out a little bit more. But
Hey, sir.
yes.
So when I type my stuff in comments, it actually turns it to blue and orange, like
Oh, yeah.
you're typing yours without comments. It should, I
Yeah,
guess it's just reversed.
it's just dark mode. That's how dark mode is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
If
mine is like
necessary,
that too.
yeah, is it cool?
Yes, it's like that, but it works. So I was like, I wasn't like scared of it because it works.
Well, it
Mm.
actually will work even if you make it a comment because of the way that we're. So like I could come up here and make this inside this comment. I can still run that, believe it or not, because I'm not running the comments with it, right? I didn't include this with my, you know, as far as it knows, this is the command I'm issuing. It doesn't know anything outside of it. So yeah, if you're not 100% sure, then just pop open a new SQL window and put it in there, and then make sure you don't do any comments or anything. All right.
That's what you get for using Apple.
I used to think that, man, and I don't know. I don't necessarily like.
I do it to poke fun. It's never serious.
Yeah, I don't know that I like the Apple interface any better than Windows or Linux. I mean, I use all three. But the hardware for Apple is hands down better than even if you buy the best thing in Windows, right? The $5,000 laptop, you got Windows on it. You put that thing to sleep versus a Mac, you put it to sleep, that Mac is going to sleep longer, right? It's going to the battery life is going to last longer. The Wi-Fi is going to work better, right? And that's because Apple just has to write a driver for the one Wi-Fi card that they support, right? And they can make that Wi-Fi the very best that they can make it, whereas Windows has to support 10,000 Wi-Fi cards, right? And so there's compromises that end up in the hardware when you run Windows and Linux too, that you don't get with this laptop I'm using right now. Like I'm struggling with putting it to sleep because it'll literally drain overnight because something is waking it up and making it drain the battery overnight. I got to leave it plugged in all the time, and it's basically a brand new laptop, right? Whereas with my MacBook, I just slap it closed. I come back in a month, open it up, boom, Still got 80% of my battery, still good to go. All right, so anybody struggle with this to the point where it's like, okay, I'm totally lost?
Sir?
Yeah.
I'm understanding everything so far. Just I don't know if I missed it. How to insert those new tracks that you put in the chat into the actual like table.
Okay. Well, I'll show you that real quick. So do you see them in the chat? Like there they are there,
Yes, sir.
right? Okay, so if you just copy that, come over here, get you a new window in Workbench, paste it in there. Make sure music catalog is selected, and then just hit that run button up there. You get it?
Yeah. I mean, it ran, but I don't.
If you want to see them, then just do a select all from tracks, like this. I like that. Run that. You should get 12 rows. And if you ran it more than once, you probably get 18 rows or 24 rows, right? You keep running this.
Yeah.
It's gonna keep listening to you and doing what you tell it to do, right?
Okay, I got it now.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, anytime you have a question, just let me know, because I guarantee you somebody else, the likelihood of someone else having the same question is pretty high. Or, you know, someone watching the video is pretty high, you know, that they might have the same question. So I love questions. I love it when stuff goes wrong. All right, let's do another one. New window. All right. Select, let's see, what do we have here? Okay. Select all records from tracks where the genre is country. Okay. See what you can do with that. All right. Anybody struggle with that? All right, Jazz?
Hey, sir.
All right. Okay.
Hey, sir.
Yes.
So when you're trying to like, like filter through these things, so you're trying to find something, but you don't capitalize like, the first letter in that word or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Will it still find it even if it's not capitalized?
It will.
Okay.
Yeah, it's case insensitive, right? Now, there is a way that you can make it case sensitive. And I think what you do is you say binary here. So this should not return anything, but if I do the C capital, it should. Yeah, so if you want case sensitive, and this will not be on the certification exam as far as I know, so if you don't want to remember this, don't. Then you use this binary thing, and because what it actually does is it converts both of these to binary and then compares them, right? Whereas this is just your string comparison, and it is total. It doesn't care about the case, right? You could do it backwards. See, right? It just doesn't care.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Good question though. All right, one more, and then we'll take a break. And I'm going to get a little less.
So I got no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I did something wrong. Well, obviously I did.
Let's go ahead and
But
share.
I tried to comment out the Kanye West one, but should I just delete it? But I commented it out and it didn't pull up the result grid at all. So then I took the comment out and then it popped up, it shows up the Kanye West songs, but the country ones didn't come up. It says no underneath the,
Okay,
just like
let's take
that.
a look at it. Go ahead, share your screen to me.
Instead of artist name, did you change it to genre?
I did. Well, let me see if I spelled it correctly. That could have been it too. Nope, yeah, that's okay. You see it now.
Okay, so there's the Kanye West one. That looks good.
Right.
Oh, from Tracks with an S on line 83.
Oh, see, yeah.
But you've only got line 83 highlighted, so you got to highlight 82 through 84 to run it. No, you still don't got it. Didn't get the SE on the front. There you go. You are only getting nulls though. Oh,
Could it
take
be
the binary,
the binary?
off of
Yep.
there. Yeah, on line 84.
What, this one?
Yeah, remove the
Is this
word
supposed to
binary.
be? Okay.
Okay,
Ah, okay. Thank you.
you bet. Let me show you guys a little bit of a trick that I use a lot when I'm trying to select what I'm doing, because it's a lot of times it's hard to get what you want to get with the mouse, right? And so if I'm going to run just this little bit here, I'll get at the end of it and I'll hit enter and I'll just shift.
You're not sharing your screen, sir.
Oh, that's right. Well, you guys should just
I'm trying to visualize it. I am, but
all right. Which one am I on? This one? No, this one. All right. Pull this over here. So I'll just get below it, and then I'll just use my shift key and then my up arrow. Right. And then that selects the whole line. I find that actually to be faster than taking my hands off the keyboard, putting them on the mouse, trying to select what I want, right? And so forth. So if that makes sense to you to do that, then you can, right? So you just get below it, maybe hit enter, shift up, 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 and then you can run. And if you are wanting to, let's see here, there is actually a shortcut key for running everything. What is it? What is the MySQL shortcut key for executing the selected text? Command Shift Enter, on a Mac or Control Shift Enter on Windows, right? So get down there, Control Shift Enter. Yeah, there you go. So now you don't even have to take your hand off your keyboard at all, right? You can get below it, Shift up, Control Shift Enter. Okay. These little things like this, I mean, they add up when you're, working about an hour. Another thing that I see a lot of people do is, okay, I want to replace this word country. I'm going to get over here and I'm going to highlight it like that. And then I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to put in here wrap, right? Okay. Well, you don't got to do all that. Just double click it and start typing, right? You don't even have to delete it. Double click it, it selects it, put in there what you want, right? That's another one that I use. I mean, I don't even think about, but when I watch people type, I see that happen a lot. So, do little things like that. It speeds you up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? All right. So I've got 3 minutes after. Let's go ahead, and I have one more that I want to do, and then we'll take a break. All right. So we'll do. Now here I was being pretty declarative, right, about select all records from. Yeah, I'm literally almost writing the SQL for you here, right? You're gonna get a little bit more or less declarative here. I'm gonna say get the rows from tracks where I'm say with a price of $10 or more. Okay. Now that's not what that column's named. It's named something else, so you're gonna have to figure that part out, right? Go ahead and give that a try and see what you come up with. All right. If you need help with that one, I've got it there on my screen. Otherwise, let's take a break. Come back at 20 past the hour. All right. Don't know if anyone's back because everybody's camera is off. So if you are back, please turn your camera on, and we will move on to update statements. Right. Maybe we'll do one more select with a and in it. All right. So let's do, oh, you know what? We'll do one with a like in it. Let's see. There we go. All right. So you guys still see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Awesome. All right. So here's what I want to
I still
do.
can't see it. I still
Really?
can't see the screen. I don't know what happened after I shared and then you went back to share yours and it never, it's the window's open, but it's blank.
Right. Okay. Probably I've had that problem on my Mac is what happens is you kind of just lose track of where the actual thing is. Let's see, what's the best way to solve that problem? Tell you what you might do is you might just close out of everything, leave the meeting, and just rejoin. All right, we'll give her a second to do that.
So what's a good Windows computer then, since like Mac has all these issues?
Lenovo.
Lenovo?
Yep.
Okay.
That's about the only one I can recommend.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is that better? Okay, awesome. All right, so here we are going to select, we're going to get tracks. Let's see, that have the string 00 in them, in their name. Okay. So get tracks that have the string 00 in their name. So we're going to be using the like clause here. Okay. All right. So I've got it here on my screen. If you weren't able to get it on your own, just take a look at what I got. And then if there's any questions about why that is, let me know. All right, we're going to move on here in just a second to update statements. Okay. So we've talked about create statements, which is the insert statement. So we haven't done too many of those. We'll do some more. But we've done the retrieve, so select. So now we'll do updates. Okay. All right. Everybody cool with that last query, that last select query with the like clause? All right. Let's see here. Do I need any of this? Can I close all these at once? Yep. Oh, there we go. I just closed it right up. All right. So let's look at the coursework real quick. so that you can refer back to that if so desired. There it is. Okay. So this is manipulating data. Okay. All right. Yeah, we did some inserts. We'll do those some more later too. But the update. Okay. Modify existing records in a table. All right. Allows you to change the values of one or more columns in specific rows. Okay. So 9 times out of 10, or more like 99 times out of 100, when you use an update, you'll also be using a where. Okay, because it's pretty rare that you're going to just update every row in a table, right? There are use cases for updating every row in a table, but it's pretty rare, right? So 99 times out of 100, when you use an update, you're going to be using a where clause, and it works exactly the same as it does in a select, right? All the same operators. You can use the like, you can use the in, you can use the not equal, you can use all of that, right? Let's take a look at the structure here. Okay, so oh, check that out. All right. So the way this works is you have the keyword update, right? All of these CRUD statements, right? You're going to actually start with the operator, right? So an insert statement starts with insert, select starts with select, update starts with update, and delete starts with delete. Right, so update is going to start with the word update, okay? And you're not doing anything from a table here. You're updating a specific table, right? It's not pulling data from, so you don't have the word from. So it's just update the table name, right? And then what are you doing? You're setting different values, right? And so if we wanted to change, this from a 15 to a 14, we would set album tracks equal 14. You don't have to know the old value, right? So update the table name, set whatever the column is that you're changing, right? Remember our columns are the verticals, right? And then you can change more than one at a time, right? You can change multiple columns, right? All day long, no problem, okay? And then you have your where condition, okay? So as an example of that, I am going to update our tracks table. Okay, you guys go ahead and type this up as well. And we're going to change the number of tracks. Actually, let's not do that. Let's change the song length in seconds, right? On Still Tippin' to 298. Okay, so we got a couple of different ways that we can get the song, this row, but the ideal way is with its identifier, right? Like if you go to dispersing to pick up your, travel pay or whatever, they don't really care what your name is. They care what your ID is, right? Your DOD ID, your social security number, right? That's how they know who you are. We're going to be the same way, right? So we're going to use ID, right? So we're going to say we're ID equal 1 because we know that's the row that we're wanting to get, okay? And then we're going to change the album length in seconds, which I haven't showed you guys this yet, but you can actually come over here, or song length in seconds rather, and double click that. Whoa, I might have double clicked it too much. Yeah, song length in seconds. Okay, and we're going to change that to 298. Okay, it was originally 296. Now we're changing it to 298. Right? Anybody have any question about what we're doing? Pretty logical, right? It's almost English. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure that we do it. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a select all from tracks up here, just so that we can prove that we did make the change. Okay. And then we'll do it after as well. Okay. And so I'm going to highlight all that, or actually, since I want to run it all, I don't have to highlight anything. I can just come up here and, what was it? Command Shift Enter. Boom. There we go. All right. So before the change, which is this select statement, still tipping 296. Then it ran the update statement, and then it's going to run the other select. Got our other select down here, the results from that, and it's 298, right? Okay. Anybody not able to make that work?
Can you explain why you put like select from on top and bottom?
Just because I wanted to see. So this select all from tracks here gives me this result set. And you don't need that at all. It was really just so that I could see the value beforehand, which is 296, and then the value afterwards. It's like saying, okay, you got it? All right, cool.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yep. I was just checking my work, basically. All right. So I'm gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna give you guys an assignment. All right, and let's see, what do we want to do? Okay, so we're going to change the release year to 2006 on a song Boys from Oklahoma. Now you can use that Boys from Oklahoma in your where clause, but really what I'm looking for is where ID is 5. Okay, so go ahead and write an update statement. And you don't have to do the select all part, but that's how you verify you did it. So I would encourage you to, but go ahead and write an update statement that changes the release year to 2006 on the song Boys from Oklahoma. Okay, and I'm going to start doing mine. So update tracks, set release year 2006, where ID equal 5. Whoops. Okay. Okay, 2006. All right. Anybody not able to make that work? All right.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So that bottom select from tracks is you just want to check that one ID, right? That's what you
Yep.
put. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yep. I'm just
Alright.
checking the one that I changed to make sure that it worked.
Okay. Sorry for all the dumb questions. I'm
No,
sure.
no. Those are perfect. My dog just blew open my door and then walked away. All right. So let's see here. That's that update. Okay. Let's see what else can we do here. Okay. Let's stick with Boys from Oklahoma. Okay. And let's see. Let's change the name of Boys from Oklahoma to Boys in the Hood. Okay. I'll get started with that. So update tracks. Set what song name to all right, so it worked. All right. Anybody not able to make that work, keep in mind this is here, the select statement's not part of it. It's just making sure that we can see that we actually did change it. Okay. Now, I'm about to throw you a little bit of a curveball. Not too challenging. But that record was live and loud at Billy Bob's, right? Okay.
So for mine, it's changed. I don't know why, but it keeps. Actually, hold on. Let me try something real quick.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So for mine, it doesn't want to change the name for it.
All right. You want to share your screen? We'll take a look.
Yep.
Let's see here. I got to zoom in a little bit. Okay. And you're here. All right. Select all from tracks, update tracks, set song name where ID equal 5. Okay. You got to put a semicolon at the end of line 37. Right.
Gotcha.
Because the select isn't part of it. It's just double checking that it did work. Right.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right. So I'll go back and share my screen. Okay. All right. So that is live and loud at Billy Bob's. So, whoops. I don't know if I copied that or not. All right. So for that album, we're going to change the album release price. Okay. So change the album release price to, I don't know, $9.99 for the album. What happened there? Live and loud at Billy Bob's. Right? Now, like I said, it's a little bit of a curveball. And I'll tell you why. Because that is actually two different things, right? You got it here and you got it here. Right? And so you're going to have to change it in two places. $11.99, $11.99. Right? And so you're going to have to use two different IDs. You're going to have to use 5 and 11, right? Okay. Excuse me.
Hey, sir.
Mhm.
What is that method called? The like IDN?
I would just call that your where clause, and it's
Oh,
literally just saying your ID is in that list. Yeah,
okay.
very very much English like, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody not able to make this work? Okay. Um, Anybody see? Well, I don't know. That's kind of a loaded question. Um, so this is just 2 songs in this album, right? However, we say this album has 9, right? And so theoretically, there's 7 other songs that we haven't listed. And if we had listed them all, then we're going to have to go look up their IDs, right? And put them here, whatever they happen to be. Right. And so it's kind of a pain in the butt to update something related to the album, right? If we wanted to update the year or the track or the price, right? And even the artist at this point, it's kind of hard, right? If we wanted to say it's been another year, so we need to say their band's been around for 13 years now, right? We have to update it in 2 places here, right? And then, that kind of follows on all the way up to, the label, right? And what I'm kind of pointing out here is that the way that we've got our data, if we're updating the song, it's great, right? We don't have to worry about it. We're just updating the one song. But we've got duplicated data in all these other columns, don't we? Okay. That's called redundant data. All right. Anytime you see, like in questions on certification exams or whatever, I think I thought I lost my glasses. You always want to reduce redundancy. Okay. You want to reduce duplication. All right. And so the fact that we have to do this update like this right here is problematic. Okay. And that kind of is going to lead us into a discussion about database design and what makes for good design and what makes for bad design. Okay. And then there's some academic stuff that you're going to have to remember. I'll give you some tips on how to remember it. Um, but this was a way of demonstrating to you, without going over the top, that we maybe have not organized our data in the best possible way. right? Because even though it was easy to do the song updates, right? When we started doing these album updates, right, it got a little bit harder. And then if you think about an artist, well, an artist is going to have more than one album, right? Unless they're Sir Mix-a-Lot, right? And so it would even be a lot harder if we had multiple albums and each album had multiple songs, right? And then if you get on up the chain a little bit further to the label, well, labels have multiple artists, right? Artists have multiple albums, right? And then the multiple albums, excuse me, albums have multiple songs. And so you've got this hierarchy, a relationship, if you will, of label to artist to album to song, right? And what we've done here is we just crammed all of that into one big table, right? And we have the data there. Yeah, it looks fine. We can query it all day long, right? And the querying is a little bit easier. The selecting is a little bit easier. But the updating, you can see, is going to get very tedious the more albums that we put in here, the more songs that we put in here, the more artists that we put in here, right? And then the more labels that we put in here. So it could get exponentially more challenging to manage and manipulate our data, right? Does everybody see that? Right? Because at the end of the day, if I wanted to update this album release price to $9.99, I should just have to update one thing, one album, right? Not two, which is what I've done, which is what we've done here. We've actually had to update two, right? And so there's another problem with doing it this way. What if when you did this, you didn't notice it, right? That, and let's make this $8.99. Now you guys don't have to do this part. Okay. Well, because I didn't notice that I had a second one, now I've got an album live and loud at Billy Bob's that has two different prices. Okay, which one's the right price, right? And so you can see, you know, that we haven't organized it in the best way possible. Okay. And so there's one other, I haven't really demonstrated that part here yet. Let's see if we can solve that problem though. Okay. All right. Let's just look at live and loud at Billy Bob's. Okay. Well, what could we do? How could we change our design a little bit? Well, without going overboard, okay, and you guys don't have to do this part, just pay attention, right? You could say, well, what if we did it like this, where, so this is Boys in the Hood and 17, okay? Both of which are good songs, by the way. What if we put the 17 up here, okay? And then we just flat out deleted this row, okay? Apply that, okay? And then we'll close that. And then let's take a look here at all the tracks. Okay. All right, well, that solved the problem of my update, didn't it? Now I only have to update row 5, right? So if I want to put this to $7.99, right? All I have to do is update the 1, okay? And then if we select this again, so we've got 1, or 5 rather, Boys in the Hood, $7.99. Okay, that looks good. All right, so we just solved that problem, right? No big deal. Okay. But now let's go a little bit further down the road here. So we already said that labels can have more than one artist. All right. So what could we do to put another artist in here? Right. Mark Chestnut. Okay. So maybe we do that. Okay. But now we have to come over here And we have to put Mark Chestnut's albums in, right? And so I don't know any Mark Chestnut albums. I don't know. But let's just say, self-named album. Okay. And now we have to come over here and he's country. Okay. And now we have to change the release year, add to this, add all the, Mark Chestnut songs. All right. So that's not really a great solution, is it? Just throwing the things in there in a comma separated list, right? That's doesn't seem to get us where we want, does it? Because now it's like, let's do that. Let's go ahead and put it in there. Okay. Okay. Now change the name Boys in the Hood back to Boys from Oklahoma. Okay. Well, how are you going to do that? Right. I'd like to see that update statement. Right. Update song name. And you guys don't have to do this. This is just me demonstrating the problems that we have, or update tracks rather. Got to put the table first. Set the song name equal to, it was Boys from Oklahoma. Where ID is 5. Okay, well, if we do that, we lose 17 and Mark Chestnut, right? I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, it worked just fine. But now we've lost data, right? So we can't easily change things anymore. When we could earlier, we could change things about songs real easily, right? Now we can't change things about songs. See that? Okay. Let's see. Let me think of trying to get us to the break before we go into the actual fix for all this, the real fix. But I'll tell you what, we'll just take our break early, okay? And then we'll come back and we will academically say why what we did is wrong, okay? And we will learn about some things that 100%, and I've never seen the certification exam, so don't think I'm telling, tales outside of school or whatever. I've never seen it. I just, I just know because I've taken zillions of tests in my lifetime what's going to be on the test. And I can guarantee you that this stuff here that we're going to talk about after the break from an academic standpoint will be on the test. And this is one of those things. Now that you understand why this design is bad, we'll talk about academically how to identify it, categorize it, and then fix it. Okay. All right. So I've got the 54 after. Let's take a 15-minute break or so, come back at 10 after the hour, and we will start talking about that stuff. All right. Any questions before you go? All right. See you in 15. All right. You about ready to get started again?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we talked a little bit before the break about why what we've done, although it captures all the data, and for songs, it works pretty well. And for retrieving data, it works pretty well. But when we try to update albums or artists or labels, it doesn't work so great. And then, maybe we tried to fix it by, putting multiple values in this one column here, the song name, and then we put multiple values in the album name, and we realized real soon, that wasn't going to scale well, right? And so we need a different solution than what we have in terms of the organization of our data, right? All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to jump ahead in the coursework here, right? So what we've done already and touched on already is this module introduction to MySQL, data types, data manipulation. We're skipping this one, although we've done a lot of the stuff that's in there. And we're going to this database design and normalization piece here. All right, so if you want to go ahead and, after class or whatever, before tomorrow night, take a review, read up on what we did, that this is the area that you would do it. Okay, database design and normalization. All right. So let's just jump in here. Like I said, I'm not going to read this to you, but I am going to, hit some high points, things where I suspect you'll see, something pop up later. Right. And when we talk about database design, we're basically talking about how we're going to organize the data. Right. And we need to make logical choices, meaning how the tables are, what their relationships are. And you guys may not realize it, but you already kind of have a bit of an idea about relationships, because we talked about a label having multiple artists. So there's a relationship between those. An artist having multiple albums. So there was a relationship there. An album having multiple songs or tracks. And so there was a relationship there. Right. And so when you talk about a relational database, that's all it's talking about. Okay. And then this physical design choices, storage optimization, that's things like making sure that, you don't do a varchar 1,000 if you're only going to store, 2 digits or 2 characters, right? And then this indexing is actually a pretty cool feature that it has, and we'll talk about that later. And so, I would definitely visit this and make sure that if there's any quizzes or something. Is there a quiz at the end of this one? I can't remember. But anyway, go ahead and read this over, maybe write some of this stuff down and quiz yourself on it if you need to. But really, most of the time, if you just think about what a database is for, then you can rule out in a multiple choice question and answer type situation a lot of the wrong answers, right? We definitely want data integrity. Okay. That makes sure that it's accurate and reliable. This referential integrity, okay, that is making sure that, say you have, an album by Kanye West, that you also have Kanye West in your database, right? That way, it's your reference between the artist, which is Kanye West, and the album has integrity, right? It exists and it's accurate and reliable. Okay. So you definitely want data integrity in every form that you can get it. Okay. You want to avoid redundancy. You want to be consistent. You want to have security. You want to have performance. You want it to be scalable, right? Which ours is not scalable right now, right? And you want it to be simple. And ours isn't really all that simple when you go to compare it to what it could be, right? Let's skip over all this stuff because we're going to do our own here in a minute. Okay. Let's skip over this because I don't care. We'll revisit this later. And then let's get right into kind of the meat of academically, or, how a data scientist or, PhDs off somewhere in their university office is going to describe some of this stuff, right? This is stuff where I'm going to explain it to you. Hopefully you'll get it. If you don't, it's no big deal, frankly, because really all this is doing is putting fancy words to things that make sense. Okay. The things that we're going to do to clean this up and give it a good structure, it makes sense to do those things. And once you do things that way, you'll never want to do them, incorrectly again. Right. But there are academic words to talk about these things. Now, it's not all that big deal. There's only 3 things that we'll have to remember related to this. Okay. All right. So there's this idea of normalization. Okay. That's the process of organizing data in a database. Reduces redundancy, improves integrity. Okay. Basically everything good, right? It's what makes a relational database a worthwhile thing. Okay. And there's 3 types of normalization, 3 levels, basically, right? And as you go through those levels, the better it gets for you. Okay. All right. So the first normal form, and oddly, they're just named first, second, and third, right? So that part's easy. The first normal form means a table contains only indivisible values in its cells, right? So if we go back over here to this, and we look at this example I have down here, where I tried to solve the problem by putting comma separated lists inside a single column, right? That's basically a violation of the first normal form. Okay. The first thing that you got to get right in a database design is no multiple items in a single column. Okay. You can see here we've got 3 different potential songs or even more in this one column. That's bad, right? 1 thing per column. Okay. So if you see a comma separated list, which I literally saw that today in a professional database that is in production. Okay. I literally saw it today. If you have that problem, you haven't done the very first thing correctly. Okay. And that's the first normal form. It just means you can't do this. Okay. It also means that each record needs to be unique, right? So you're not going to have 2 rows that are the same. Okay. That makes sense because how are you then going to, if they're identical rows, then how are you going to get the one that you want or update the one that you want, right? So first normal form means only one thing, right? It's not divisible. This is divisible because I could separate it by the comma, right? I could divide it by the comma and get 3 things out of it, okay? So first normal form, every table cell should contain a single value. That's just another way of saying it contains only indivisible values in its cells. So if you hear about the first normal form, right? Here's how I remembered this when I was in college, right? And I didn't really understand what they were saying, right? It's the first form. Well, first is number 1, okay? And if I'm taking a test and it's asking me about having only one thing in a column, well, then I know that's the first normal form. Pretty simple, right? First, one thing, first normal, okay? Single, that's number 1. Number 1 is first, right? Okay, so that's how you can remember that, or you can come up with your own way to remember that. But that is the first normal form. Nothing like this with commas in it, no duplicate rows, right? Anybody have any questions about the first normal form? All right. The second, okay, second level or second normal means that it does match the first, okay? And then here's where it gets a little funky as far as the wording, but I'm going to explain it to you. It says all non-key attributes are fully functionally dependent on the primary key. All right, that's the worst set of words ever to come out of somebody's pen. Okay. What does that even mean? All right. Well, I'll tell you what it means. So we mentioned earlier, or I did, that this ID is a primary key, right? I talked about this yesterday. This key is just something that represents an entity in the database, okay? Now, an entity is just a thing, right? It's just something that exists, okay? A song, does it exist? Yes, it's an entity, right? A table, a chair, a person, a lamp, right? All these things are entities, they exist, right? What about an idea, right? Something that is basically doesn't have, it's not something you can hold in your hand, right? It still exists, right? So it doesn't have to have a physical representation to exist, right? But ideally, right, you're going to have entities. You definitely will have entities in your database. And ideally, they will all have a key to identify them, right? And so the key here is 5, and it identifies really just, hopefully, just the one song, right? In your guys' database, it still does just identify the one song, okay? But it has all these other non-key attributes, right? That's the wording it used, right? These non-key attributes, okay? And then it in parentheses says columns. All right, so anything that's not the key, basically, depends on the key for identification, okay? So, for example, I can reliably say that the song length in seconds depends on the song being ID 5, right? Because that's the song is, you know, Boys from Oklahoma. It's 239 seconds long. It's identified by key 5. Okay. However, live and loud at Billy Bob's, right? If we were to go back and look at the other tracks, right? The other records in our table, okay? Well, he doesn't only depend on 5, he also depends on I guess I deleted that one. All right, so let's use Mike Jones' album name, right? So the only key here to look at is 1, right? But Mike Jones also has a key of 7. So does the album name, is it fully functionally dependent only on a primary key? No, right? It actually has 2 different things that can identify it, right? So that's a violation of the second normal form. It has 2 things that identify it, right? Okay, so ideally it would just have one thing, right? He would have his own table, his album would have its own table, and Mike Jones's album would have a single ID that identifies him. Right? So that's all that means is you have a primary key that identifies you, and there's nothing else that you depend on, right? You don't depend on another row, you don't depend on another column, although if you depend on another column, that's the third normal form, okay? All right, so the way that I normally tell people to memorize the second normal form is basically that it's not the first or the third, right? Because I have good ways in my mind, good ways of remembering the first and the third, right? But if you can't, you know, commit this to memory, which I never did, and you know, until I was way deep in my career, you know, then just as far as passing the exam, just remember there's 3 of these, and if it's not the first and it's not the third, then it's going to be the second, right? If you see it on a quiz or a test, okay? All right. Now let's talk about, well, first, any questions on first or second normal form? Right? I know I'm just flying through this. Okay. Well, if you do have questions about it, holler at me. Watch the video, watch it in slow motion, whatever you need to do. Okay. Read this stuff, see if it makes sense. All right. Third normal form has even crazier wording. Okay. Number one, it's got to be second normal, which by definition means it's got to be first normal as well. Okay. And all non-key attributes are not transitively dependent on the primary key through other non-key attributes. Okay. All that means is, well, first off, the way that you remember third normal is it will always include the word transitive. Okay, so if you're taking the certification exam and you see a question about which normal form means no transitive dependencies, transitive is the third one. Okay, so just remember that. Transitive is the third one. Individual items is the first one. And then the other one, obviously, is the second one. Okay, so, but let's talk about what this means, just, for academic purposes, I guess, right? What that means is I can't have a column here where the value depends on this column, but this column depends on another column, right? And that's where the transitive comes from, right? When you're transiting, right, you're moving, you're going from place to place, right? And so you can't have a transitive dependency, meaning I can't have one column depend on another column, which then depends on another column, okay? The only thing that this album name needs to depend on is the album ID, right? And when I say depend on it, I mean uniquely identify it, okay? So now we don't have that right now because we've done bad design, right? We violated all three of these normalization forms. Still tipping is directly identified by ID1, so that's fine, right? 298 is identified by 1 because that's the still tipping song, so that's fine. The release year and the album, I'm sorry, the genre are actually all defined by the ID1, right? You can say select genre from tracks where ID is 1 and you're going to get rap, right? So these song related properties are all fine here. They all actually follow all three. It's when you start getting these other ones in the mix, right? Because Mike Jones is not defined only by 1. The album Mike Jones is defined by 1 and 7, right? And so forth. Okay. So if you see commas in the field, right? Like you see more than one value here. Back then, pretty good song too. And then Cuddy Buddy, which is a horrible song, should never have been released, right? If you see that, that's a violation of first normal because there's 3 things in there. There should only be 1. 1 is first, right? Okay. If you hear the word transitive, you're going to think third. Okay. And if it's not one of those, you're going to think second because process of elimination, right? Okay. Now, I know I went through that pretty fast. That is something that, if you can memorize that, come up with some way, to memorize this, that's going to be 3 right answers on your certification exam, is what I would guess. At least 2, right? They're going to definitely ask you 2 questions about this on the certification exam. If I had to bet some money, I would. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So in the case for how Mike Jones is defined by 1 and 7, could you technically make Mike Jones its separate database?
That is 100% correct. Except we're going to make it a separate table inside the same database.
Table. Okay. Cool.
Yep. That's actually what we're going to do. We're going to start taking our database here and we're going to start modeling it after real life, meaning we're going to have a song table, right? We're going to have an album table. We're going to have an artist table, and we're going to have a label table. And all of those things are going to have relationships between them. Okay. Yes, that is a great insight, and I couldn't have asked for a better segue into what we're going to do. So thank you for that. All right. Any other questions about this and the need to memorize it or how to memorize it? All right. Well, then let's go fix our stuff over here. Okay. All right. So I think the first thing that we need to do is I want this select statement so I can see my data. And at this point, you guys, I want you to go ahead and type along with me. Right. So we got our select all from tracks. Okay. And here, I only want that so that I can kind of see what I'm up against and kind of wrap my head around what we're doing here. Okay. So we know that we want to split this up. We want the album, Mike Jones, to be identified by one ID. So we're going to give albums their table. The other entities in here, artist, same idea, and label, same idea. All right. So we know we need 4 tables now, right? We need tracks. We need, except we already have tracks, so we'll name it songs. So songs, albums, artists, and labels, right? So we're going to make 4 tables out of the one that we have. Okay. Now we'll start with the songs. Let me rephrase that. Actually, let me see. Yes, it's easier to start at the top level of your hierarchy and work your way down, and that'll become clear why in just a second. So we're not going to start with the actual songs table. We're going to start with the labels. Okay. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to create table, right? Labels. Okay. And because I'm not as smart as I used to be, I have to rely on crutches like finishing my statement here. Make sure I got my closing parentheses because maybe I'll forget it in my closing semicolon, right? Just maybe I'll forget that. Come up in here. And now I'm going to do my ID column. Okay. Now, some people, some organizations will say that your ID column needs to be, and don't type this yet, the name of your table and then the ID. Okay. I actually don't like that because it's a little bit ambiguous when it comes to creating the relationships. So just trust me for right now that I think it's better to just do ID. Okay. So ID is going to be an integer. Okay. Nearly all the time when you're creating a table, right, you need a key to identify the thing. So we need a key to identify the label. That's this ID column, right? So he's an integer. We want him to auto increment so that we don't have to supply the values, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And then we want to say, you know what, that is going to be your primary key. Okay. And so really the first line of every table that you make nearly is going to be just this exact code right here, right? Because when we go to do the next one down, which is the artists, right? Guess what? We still need a key to identify the artist. All right, we're going to name it ID. It's going to be an integer. It's going to be auto increment, and it's going to be the primary key, right? So, just remember that int auto increment primary key. Okay, when you're creating a table. All right. So what else do we need to know about the label? Well, we have it over here. We got the name, the year, and the location. And so I am going to see how lazy I can be. I mean, efficient. Yeah, I can't grab those. Okay, no big deal. Label name, label founded year, label location. Okay. All right. Now, obviously, that's not correct. We got to give it a data type. You got to give each column a data type, right? So the label name would be a varchar, right? Because it's a string. And, you can get crazy with label names. So we'll go with 255, right? Characters, because maybe a label name is, something incorporated or a Texas company or whatever, right? So, and then a comma, okay? Now, let's talk real quick. Well, we'll leave that there for now, okay? Label founded year, right? We want that to be an integer, okay? Sounds good. And then the label location, That's basically the city or whatever, the state, country, I don't care. We'll make that a varchar 255 as well. Okay. All right, now that would be enough to create this table, and it wouldn't be incorrect to do so like this, okay, but it could be a little better, okay? And one of the ways that we're going to make it a little better, and the reason why, is to give it data consistency and integrity, okay? Meaning I want someone to specify the name. Without a name, this record's, or this row, you know, this table, the thing that we put in the table, right? The label, without a name, it's pretty much useless to a human, right? And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put not null, meaning this is a constraint, okay? I'll write that out. Constraint, C-O-N-S-T-R-A-I-N-T, okay? It constrains, it puts limits on the things that you can put in this column, right, when you get it made, okay? And basically it means you got to put something, not null. All right, there's other kind of constraints, okay? There are unique constraints, meaning whatever I put in there has to be unique, okay? And that probably would be a good constraint to put on this one. I'm not going to, but you know, it could be. There's also this idea of a check constraint. Okay, you can check, for example, that well, let's look at it on this one. In fact, let's go ahead and add a check constraint to this one. So we're going to check that it is greater than 1900. Okay, now I don't know for sure that that's the right syntax because I almost never do a check constraint. So let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT what the excuse me correct syntax for that is. Excuse me. Okay. And it liked putting unique there. We'll do the same thing. All right. We will use the unique constraint. I have been talked into it by ChatGPT. All right, so the label name is going to be not null and it's going to be unique. Okay. And then the label founded year is going to have a check that anything entered into it has to be greater than 1900. Okay. And then the label location, and I don't really care, right? I know the name, right? To me, that's the most important thing. And so I'm not going to make it be not null, unique, or anything. I'll just leave it alone. Okay. All right. So that is our label table, right? Yeah. Anybody have any questions about what we've done here? Right. These constraints. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. Right. I've got it highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and issue the command to create it. Okay. And if I go and refresh over here, I should now have a labels table. I can expand it out and take a look at it. Okay. Another thing that I can do is I can issue the command to explain it. Oh, I think that's how it works. Okay. So I can explain it. Okay. It says, okay, well, this is the best explanation I can give you, is that it has these fields, these data types, you know, whether or not it will allow nulls. Okay. Any kind of keys or really constraints here, and then any kind of extra data. All right, defaults we can talk about. Well, we'll do that here in a minute. All right. Okay, so after you run it, you know, maybe you want to run the explain command on it and just make sure that it did it. Okay, that's fine. All right. Now that we've done that, I'm going to comment that out because I don't want to run it again. Whoa. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. So I've commented that out, which you can do with control and the slash. That's the same slash as on the question mark. I don't know if that's a backslash or a forward slash. I've never learned that. All right.
Hey, sir.
Yo.
My explain labels is not like popping up on the output.
Okay.
It's just like throwing it there.
Go ahead and share your screen. We'll take a look. All right. Well, you've spelled labels 2 different ways, on line 5 and on line 11.
Oh, shoot.
All right. Well, actually, this is a great learning moment. Okay. Did you run that? And so do you now have a table called labels that's misspelled?
Um,
Go over and
Let's
click
get-
your refresh button in your schema explorer and expand out tables. Okay, you do. All right. Well, we don't want that hanging around. That's called technical debt. Okay. As something that is going to cause problems later. Right. So I'm going to teach you the statement to get rid of that. Okay. So just I would get up there like around line 3 and just type. And now let me preface this by saying there's 2 different sets of commands for making things, for deleting things, and for changing things. Okay. And actually for creating things as well. If we're creating data, then we're doing an insert. If we're creating an object like a table, we're doing create, right? So even though there's a similar thing there, they have a different set of syntax, right? So if we were going to create data, we would do insert into whatever table. Okay, if we're going to create the table, we create table. If we're going to update data, then we say update whatever, set the data equal to whatever. If we're going to change an object, we don't use the word update as our keyword. We use the word alter. Okay, so we create objects and insert data. We alter objects and update data. Okay, and then we drop objects instead of deleting them. Okay, so to drop this table, you just literally get up there on line 3 and type out drop labels and then a semicolon, and then you can run. You may have to drop table labels, but I can't. Yeah, put table in front of it. So drop table, but make sure you spell labels the way that you had it misspelled, right? Or else. So LABLES in this case, right? Because that's the one you want to get rid of. Okay, and then you can just highlight that and run it. Okay, and then see, it's gone over there.
That's
right?
cool.
Okay, so remember, create objects, insert data, alter objects, update data, drop objects, delete data, and then what's the other one? Select. Okay, well, select, you don't actually select objects. So,
Well, you
so
could
keep in
explain
mind that
objects.
there's those 2 separate sets of commands based on whether you're doing objects or whether you're doing data. Okay, we'll talk about that more later too. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, no problem. And then you just need to run that 5 again so that you create your new table with the right name.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. And actually, that's important enough that I'm going to come up here and put it. All right. So objects, right? We drop, we alter, we create. Right. Data
Sorry, you're not
we
sharing your
delete.
screen.
Oh, really? Thank you. All right, data, we delete, we update. Actually, I'll just do the CRUD here. CRUD, right? Create. Well, that's insert, retrieve, which is select, update, and delete. Okay. Now, the reason I'm putting such a focus on this is because you're going to get a question probably on your certification exam that says, which is the right way to drop the table people? Okay. And they're going to give you A, delete people. B, delete table people. C, drop table people. D, kill people. Right? And about half the people, about half the test takers are going to choose delete table people, right? Because they're so used to using delete to, and in fact, this would probably be to delete the table people, right? So they even screw you over a little bit more by putting in your brain that it's delete, but it's not, right? You always drop objects. You never delete an object. The only thing you delete is a row of data. Okay. All right. So just don't get caught out by that. We want to get these easy questions right every time. Okay. And that, to me, that's
a little bit up. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. So we have our labels. Okay. Let's go ahead and put in our artists now. So I'm going to select all from track so I can see the columns again. And so I've already got my ID column, right? And actually, I'm going to be a little bit more. Wait, what happened here? Tracks. What did I do? Oh, okay. All right. So our artists. Okay, we're going to want the artist name. We're going to want the artist age, although I'm probably going to change that. We're going to want the artist genre, and that's enough for that. And let's change this to well, I don't know. Think about that. Artist age. Let's just put year founded. Oh. All right. You saw me do something there briefly. I did year underscore founded. Okay. That's actually probably more correct than what we've done. I told you sometimes I slip into the Microsoft way of doing things. I've been in Microsoft naming mode this whole time. Right. And so we're actually going to fix that right now. Okay. We're all going to come over here and we're going to drop our table labels. Okay. And then we're going to uncomment this. Whoa. And we're going to go into MySQL naming type. This is called snake case. I'm sure you guys have heard that. Okay. Ah, come on. There we go. Okay. And then we'll explain it again, make sure that we got that. Okay. Yeah, so it's pretty standard for MySQL to use snake case. Okay. It's standard for SQL Server, the Microsoft version of MySQL, to use, this is called I think it's called Pascal case. Maybe Hungarian. I can't remember. But when you start it with a lowercase and then you uppercase each word, that's got a specific name. And this is basically the Microsoft way of doing it. But this snake case is the MySQL more correct way of doing it. Okay. So, all right. Sorry for having to do that, but hey, at least everybody got to drop a table. All right. We good to continue on the artists? Okay. So we'll fix the artist name and fix the year founded. And let's go ahead and put artist in front of here because we have year founded up here, label founded year. And so actually, let's use the same terminology. So artist founded year. Okay. And all right. So what should we use for the artist name? As far as the data type? Varchar, right? 255. Not null and unique. Okay. The year, integer, and let's throw another check constraint on there. In case y'all are wondering, I'm getting the keyboard shortcuts wrong because I'm using the Mac keyboard shortcuts instead of the Linux ones. So check the artist founded year is greater than, let's say, 1980. Okay. And then the artist genre. All right, well, let's think about this actually. Are we likely to see repeats of the artist genre? Meaning, are there going to be more than one that's rap, more than one that's rock, more than one that's country? Yeah. Okay. So using good database design, we actually should create a table for the genre. So let's leave this out for right now. Okay. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But first, let's talk about the relationship now between labels and artists. All right, would you say it's true? True or false? A label can have many artists. Does Death Row Records have more than one artist? Does Columbia Records, Murder Row, any of these, right? They all have more than one artist, right? So they can have many. So this is a true statement, okay? Now, in relational database terms, what that means is there's a relationship between them, okay? And the way that you create that relationship, right, is you come down here and you put, what is the thing that identifies the label? It's ID, okay? And so we're going to put a column in our artist table to hold that ID, right? And we're going to call it label ID here, okay? Now, that label ID is going to be an integer, okay? And it needs to be not null, right? Okay. And that's enough for that label ID for right now. But so now we know that there's going to be the label ID here, okay? How do we officially make it a relationship? Because you could put that there and have this relationship just, you know, informally. But what you do is you come down here and let me make sure I remember this correctly. I'm gonna have to look it up. And the fact that I'm looking this up should encourage you, right? You don't have to memorize all this stuff. You just have to know it. You have to recognize it when you see it, right? And then you have to be able to understand that it exists, and then you can Google it or whatever else, right? Let's see. Do they talk about that here? No. Let's just see if I can nuke it out here. Don't type this until I've checked it out. So foreign key label ID references labels table ID column. All right. Actually, I think that's right, but let me run it. And let's see if I got any errors. Okay. Yep. All right. So that's actually the correct way. All right. So let's talk about this for just a second. And I know we're getting close to the class period being over. All right. Go ahead and get that typed in there. And then you can run it. Okay. Make sure it works. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk about it a minute. All right. So we have this artist table, right? And so say this is Murder Row, right? And I don't know, I think that's like who? NWA or, you know, the early guys, right? So we'll have NWA in here. And then Murder Row as a label will have ID1. Okay, so we'll put ID1 in the label. Okay, and then down here, we say that's a foreign key, right? It's a key. It identifies an entity, right? That label ID identifies a label, doesn't it? Right? It does. Okay. So it is a key. Is it the key that identifies our artist? No. It's a key that identifies something outside of the artist table. Okay. Well, if something is outside of our country, it's foreign, right? If it's outside of our domain, it's a foreign thing. Okay. So this is a foreign key. Label ID is a foreign key. Okay. It identifies something outside of our artist's entity. Okay. What does it identify? Well, or what does it reference? Okay. It references the labels table. Okay. ID column. All right. And that's why I didn't want to name that label ID, because then we'd have label ID here and label ID here. That gets confusing. Okay. Excuse me. So we have a label ID column in our artist table. That's a key. It's a foreign key because it's not local to our artist table. That identifies something outside of our artist table. And it references the table called labels, which is up here that we made earlier, right? And it references the ID column in that table. Okay. That's how you create a relationship. That's what a relationship is in a relational database. Okay. It is the connection. And I've used the term bridge before, or like when we start doing some queries with this, you'll see basically how that kind of creates a bridge or a connection or a wormhole, or however you want to think about it, where you can connect and get information about the artist and the label at the same time in the same query. Okay. All right. We're going to stop there. It's 2100 my time. Anybody have any questions about that? This is an important concept. Okay. We're going to do it 3 more times, actually 4 more times, because we're going to do the genre the same way tomorrow night. So try to read up on the normalization and database design stuff if you have time. Any questions about what we've done?
Just confirm we are going to keep practicing this, like the foreign key part, the last. Okay.
Yep, we're going to do this a few more times tomorrow night, because we're going to create the genre table. We're going to create the albums table, and we're going to create the songs table, and all of those things are related. And so we'll be doing this. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Y'all holler if there's anything I can do for you. Did y'all get the link to the OneDrive? I emailed it. Okay. So yeah, actually I just shared the folder where it lands. So I don't even have to do anything anymore. So you guys can just go directly there after probably an hour or two if you are trying to find it tonight, but it'll definitely be there by tomorrow morning. So all right. I appreciate y'all's attention. Yep. And I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Quick question.
You bet.
Would you be able to send the table and everything in? I finally got my 8.4 version to work. I couldn't get the
Okay.
8.4.4. And then it started working